Hello, everybody. Today is day 102, and I'm reading from 1 Samuel 15, 16, and 17. This is an amazing, packed full 3 chapters dealing with the consequences of disobedience and the remarkable supernatural power and potential of full obedience to God. God clearly instructs King Saul that he's to confront the Amalekites and King Agag. He's to destroy everybody and kill everybody, and then he is to destroy all that they have. And God gives Saul a great victory, but he compromises. He spares King Agag, and he takes the best of the livestock, and he's unwilling to utterly destroy. We don't know his full motive behind this, but some of it begins to surface in his defense. The word comes to Samuel, the prophet from God, and God says to Samuel, I regret that I set Saul up as king. He refers to the king as not obeying his commandments, and Samuel the prophet is deeply grieved. In fact, he cries out to God all night on his behalf. And Saul sets up a monument for himself, suggesting that something is shifting in Saul's heart from his humble beginning. And God says to Samuel that, hey, Saul has turned his back from following me. Samuel now goes and he confronts the king, and the king comes up with a premeditated story. You can tell that he has kind of thought and considered what he might say to the prophet. And like a child, the king tries to defend himself and to justify his behavior. And he says, to Samuel, he says, listen, I did obey. And Samuel tells him, no, but you did not. Samuel tells the king, in fact, to shut up. This is remarkable because a prophet speaking to the king could have had him executed, but you see here that there is boldness that rises up on the inside of the prophet because he has heard, thus saith the Lord. He shares this disturbing revelation with the king, and we discover this partial obedience is actually no obedience at all. The Bible tells us in these passages, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and obedience is better than sacrifice. And he, in fact, the king is told these killing words, another whom's better than you, God has chosen to be king. We're introduced to the humble David. God looks obviously at the heart, while man looks at the outward appearance. And David, which appears somewhat unimpressive, we find later, because of his dependence upon God, becomes a mighty man of God. Samuel anoints him, and the Spirit of God comes upon David. And God uses David even immediately to humble the Philistines and to show the Israelites a lesson on faith as he confronts the Goliath. David willingly confronts this intimidating giant, even though he has the disadvantage. He shows us the power of faith, of confessions and declarations, and how important it is for you and I to not look at the circumstances nor our disadvantage, but our advantage as we stand upon the promises of God and we dare declare, thus saith the Lord. He dismisses the lies of the enemy and the giant's threats, and by embracing the faithfulness of God and how God was faithful in the past, as God had delivered David again and again, and by his hands against the lion and the bears and defending the flocks, David assures himself that God will be faithful as he confronts this giant. Saul relies on the power of the flesh as he takes his armor and places it upon David, but David, taking and throwing the armor off, relies upon the power of the Spirit, takes up 5 little stones, and brings down the giant. He runs towards the giant in relentless faith, giving no room for fear or intimidation or second thought. David gains the victory for God, and God gets the glory from it. All of this is a lesson of the importance for you and I to be fully devoted to God, to fully obey God, and to declare the promises of God and seize the victory that is ours.